Hey there, so I call this video EBM in one chart. What we're basically going to do in the next several minutes is we're going to go over all of the really high yield EBM equations that you need to know for USMLE Step 1. So this method was taught to me by my friend Michael Velez, so I'm going to call this the Velez method. So follow along here, try to write this out, and this is going to be everything, pretty much everything that you need to know in order to tackle the EBM questions that you get on Step 1. Okay, so we are going to, give me 1 second here. Okay, so we are going to start by just making a chart. So it's going to be a 2x2 table, and we're going to write A, B, C, and D. Looks familiar so far, probably. So now what we're going to do is we're going to write SN, SP, NPV, and PPV. So the general theme that we're following here, the reason why we write these in the location that we write them in, is because when we're trying to figure out the sensitivity, we're taking near over near plus far. So A over A plus C. So that's going to follow for all of these. Specificity is going to be near over near plus far. Negative predictive value is going to be near over near plus far. And then positive predictive value is going to be near over near plus far. Now we're going to draw a line. And we're going to make up our own term. And this term is going to be V. I'm calling it the Velez constant. So what it is it's essentially the same idea. It's near over near plus far, but we're not attributing it a specific value. So we're going to write risk ratio equals, relative risk equals. So the relative risk equals the positive predictive value divided by the Velez constant. Then we're going to say, give me 1 second, I have to move this all over. Okay, so then we're going to say 1 minus the relative risk equals the relative risk reduction. So relative risk reduction equals 1 minus the relative risk. The relative risk equals positive predictive value over V. Now we have to kind of change our orientation on the page. So I can't actually change the orientation because I'm limited by the software that I'm using, but basically what we're going to be doing is we're going to be taking the positive predictive value and we're going to be subtracting out V. So it's essentially A over A plus B minus C over C plus D. And that's going to give us the attributable risk, so AR. So we're going to write it on the side as if we were looking at this, PPV minus V equals AR. And then we're going to go in the opposite direction over here. So we are going to take V minus PPV, so V minus PPV, and that equals the absolute risk reduction. So we'll write ARR. Now, kind of sticking on that plane, if your head isn't already tilted, we're going to write two lines like this. We're going to write 1 and 1. So 1 over the absolute risk reduction, so 1 over the absolute risk reduction equals the number needed to treat. And then 1 over the absolute risk equals the attributable risk, I keep doing that, number needed to harm. Finally, we're going to just take an O and an R and put it in here and draw an arrow this way and then an arrow this way. And remember that O comes before R in the alphabet, so we're going to go, and also in the term odds ratio. So we're going to take A times D over B times C. So A times D over B times C, and that equals the odds ratio. And other than likelihood ratio, this really covers everything that you need to be familiar with. The likelihood ratios, I like to think of them as a 1 minus sandwich. So I'll explain what I mean by that. So the likelihood ratio, the positive likelihood ratio, so remember that sensitivity is always going to go on top. Sensitivity over 1 minus specificity. And then the likelihood ratio, the negative likelihood ratio, equals 1 minus sensitivity, because remember we said that sensitivity always goes on top, over specificity. So I call this the 1 minus sandwich, because if you write it out this way, the 1 minuses are stuck in the middle. They are two separate equations though, so make sure you keep that in mind. And that really covers everything that you need to know to answer almost every question dealing with calculations for EBM on USMLE Step 1.